Hello, all you hard timers out there, and welcome to Undeclared Bajor.
Hard timers. Some low-hanging fruit there.
Whatever. My name is Fletcher. About to say hello is Data.
Hey!
Today we're going to discuss and review Star Trek Deep Space Nine, Season 4, Episode 19, Hard Time. Oh, Hard Time? Okay. No. Alternate title, Just Another Normal Day in the Life of Chief O'Brien.
Yep.
Sadly. As always, you can expect full spoilers up through the episode being discussed and a possible small number of minor spoilers for later in the series, but we'll keep those to an appropriate minimum. But that one movie or TV show you haven't seen yet, we will spoil that. So
100%. Yeah. You know, like Breaking Bad. I've never even watched Breaking Bad, so I'll just make up some spoilers. Like, Jesse dies at the end, and
yeah. Walt dies at the end. Jesse gets away. Rules it. Nope. I thought I fixed that. Hard Time originally aired April 15th, 1996. It was written by Robert Hewitt Wolfe in a rare solo credit. Story by Daniel Keyes Moran and Lynn Barker.
So, yeah, these...
Both new names, I think.
They are.
And directed by Alexander Singer, who we know.
This is the final episode directed by Alexander Singer of Deep Space Nine, in point of fact.
Did he move on to Voyager or something?
What did you do after this, Alexander Singer? Maybe that's a good question. Let's find out. So, let's see. He did... Yeah, he's going to do 10 episodes of Voyager. Has he done them yet? What seasons? Season 4. So, yeah. He must move over to Voyager because he starts writing for them in some season 2, some season 3, some season 4. So...
Okay. We're on season 2 of Voyager right now, right?
I think so. That sounds right.
Yeah.
But these other two, they're a pair. Here we've got Daniel Keyes Morgan, a computer programmer.
Is it Morgan or Moran?
I'm sorry, Moran. Thank you.
Okay.
A computer programmer and science fiction writer, most famous for his own fiction series, The Tales of the Continuing Time.
Oh wow! So not that stopping time.
No, yeah, the time that keeps going. Exactly. The one continuing time.
Right.
He has been the administrator of a number of websites, and currently maintains the Daniel Keyes Moran blog. So that's, and I also like that. Unlike every other person, there's not a link to his IMDb from his Memory Alpha page. There is a link to his Wikipedia page where he's written some Star Wars stories.
Nice. Not everybody gets a Wikipedia page.
Yeah. Let's see. Lynn Barker, on the other hand, both of them wrote this episode. That's pretty much it as far as Star Trek stuff, it seems like. Previously wrote stories and scripts for episodes of Space Academy, 1977, Jason of Star Command, 1979, Whiz Kids, and The Twilight Zone.
Oh, I've heard of the Twilight Zone.
And when I look at her IMDb... That is literally everything that she's written for. So they weren't like underselling her.
Nice. Any clue why Robert Hewitt Wolfe is flying solo this time?
Well, actually, I think it may be because of... okay, hold on. Let me get into the story about this episode coming to be.
Okay.
I think it may be related here. So basically, Daniel Keyes Moran and Lynn Barker... pitched this story, or the story that would become this story, back in season 1. And Robert Hewitt Wolfe, instantly big fan. He's like, hey, we need to buy this story. And Michael Pillar's like, I don't think so. So, in the 3rd season, Robert Hewitt Wolfe's like, hey, you remember that story from season? We should buy that story. And Pillar's like, no, not interested. So finally, 4th season comes around. Robert Hewitt Wolfe goes to Ira Stephen Bear and is like, hey, we should buy this episode. And I guess Ira Stephen Bear's like, oh, okay, why not? And so this is like his baby from season 1. And I assume that's kind of why he ends up being the person who does it.
Got it. Okay. So it was like kind of a passion project for him.
Yeah.
And Ira Stephen Bear's like, okay, whatever.
Stop bugging us. Fine. Go write the stupid story.
All right. Because there's some stuff There was some stuff in there where I thought I was hearing Ira Steven Bear's voice, but I guess not. Anyway, in this lighthearted episode of Star Trek Deep Space Nine, an old man sits alone in a dim, high-ceilinged cell, which I'm pretty sure is the cave set with some extra crap added. Using his finger to draw patterns in the sandy floor. A voice comes over an intercom telling all offenders to prepare for decontamination. A green beam sweeps across the room, erasing the pattern in the sand. So it not only decontaminated germs, it decontaminated sand drawings.
Yeah, it seems like it like resets everything, or I don't know. It's weird.
He makes a little noise when it crosses over him, so maybe it hurts or something.
That's also how they bathe.
Oh, yeah.
Well, and I assume it's mentioned later about the toilet facilities not being present. But yeah, I assume it's like they go in the corner and this cleans it up.
When he brought that up, I was like, wait a second. Oh, yeah, okay, that might explain the whole toilet situation then. Yeah. But the man begins drawing again. Suddenly the door opens and two green-skinned aliens walk in and say, "Miles Edward O'Brien, the Agrathi Authority has reviewed your espionage case. You've served 20 cycles of a 15-cycle sentence, and you're free to go." He objects that he has nowhere to go to, but they just cattle prod him and throw him out the door.
Which, as we find out, is completely unnecessary. If they were really ready to let him go, there's no need to cattle prod him or throw him anywhere.
Uh-huh.
It's kind of just like pointlessly mean. But the actress who plays this character, the female character here, Margot Rose, featured in a similar episode of The Next Generation, The Inner Light, where she plays the wife of Captain Picard in that life that he lives.
Huh. I thought she looked familiar, but I wasn't sure because of all the makeup. Right. So. But we cut to the same room, but a younger Chief O'Brien is laying on a bed with people around him, and there's no sand on the floor. O'Brien wakes up screaming. One of the people there is Kira. O'Brien is amazed that Kira hasn't aged at all in the last 20 years. Kira explains that the last 20 years were just a simulation in his brain that in reality took only a few hours. The Agrathi jailkeeper lady brags that this is a much more efficient system than having actual prisons. So,
I mean, cheaper. Yeah, I guess so.
I mean, you'd think if you wanted to come up with a punishment system that didn't involve prisons, you'd also use one that didn't have any of the, bad aspects of prisons, but...
Well, apparently it's designed tailored to each person, so some people might get, white-collar, resort prison, and O'Brien gets the, shoved in a cell with no toilet for 20 years, and, it's so strange that's
yeah.
Yeah.
And why we're on this planet, what the heck is going on? Apparently it's in the Gamma Quadrant. None of this is ever explained.
Nope. Also, I guess it's good that their brains are so similar to ours, because who knows what weird stuff they might have screwed up in his head if they tried to insert memories and their brains were completely different.
Yeah. I mean, maybe their science is advanced enough. They can just analyze his brain and be like, okay, this is what we need to do. Who knows?
Could be.
But anyway, Kira assures the chief that nothing he experienced was real. But he says, "It was real to me." Back on the station, Sisko explains to Keiko that Miles was asking the Agrathi too many questions about their technology and got charged with espionage. So he's like, "What was that? What's that?" And they're like, "This is a special oven we use that uses microwaves to heat food." Oh my gosh, how dare you ask us about this? Unfortunately, the memories they gave him supposedly can't be removed, but they'll have Dr. Bashir try. Kira and O'Brien fly a runabout through the wormhole back to the station. O'Brien says he used to dream about this. And Kira says, that was the dream. This is the reality. They are met by Dr. Bashir at the airlock, who walks O'Brien back to the infirmary for tests and tells him to take it easy for a while.
Yeah, just chill for a bit. It'll be fine.
You take a week off,
Yeah.
Julian asks Miles if he was with anyone in his fake captivity, and O'Brien says he was alone. Cut to the cell door opening and Miles being thrown in and landing on the ground. An Agrathi prisoner kneels beside him and squeezes some fruit juice into his mouth, then gives him the fruit to eat. The prisoner introduces himself as E-Char, last name Hardout, saying he's been here for 6 years, and says to Miles, "Welcome to hell." Cut back to the chief and the doctor in Deep Space Nine. Completely alone, O'Brien reemphasizes.
No one there at all.
Don't ask. Cease your questions. The writers are aware that just a few episodes ago they established that Bashir has the ability to erase memories, so we get a scene where Bashir explains to Keiko that since O'Brien's mind was put through a highly realistic simulation where he experienced everything and made choices, etc., the memories are basically real and can't be removed without completely erasing his memory. So they can do a Kern on him, but they can't, turn the dial back 20 years or whatever.
It's ridiculous because in the Next Generation, we routinely erased people's memories for, specific periods of time. And those were all real memories. They weren't erasing fake memories, but whatever.
Right. This is completely inconsistent with stuff we've seen.
But the funny thing is, you could argue that, maybe they can only erase, more recent memories. They can't erase, these super long-term memories. But if they could erase even, a week or two of O'Brien's memories, then the worst part that he feels so bad about would be eliminated, and he would be way better.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, they should totally explore that. But maybe they did that after this episode or something. But then Bashir, talking to Keiko, gives a recap of just some of the horrible, horrible crap that the chief has already gone through in his life.
Yep. Remember those episodes?
Yeah. And concludes, he'll probably be okay. He's like, remember the time he kept going to the future and then kept seeing himself die? And then he went to the future and then died, and then himself from the future came back and replaced him?
Does anyone actually know about that? Did he tell anybody that that's what happened?
That's a good question. I forget. Meanwhile, sitting in the infirmary, Miles tries to order some chilash fruit from the replicator. But the replicator doesn't know what he's talking about. Then Bashir walks in with E-Char. No, it's not E-Char, it's Keiko.
No.
Then the O'Brien family has dinner. O'Brien isn't thrilled about having to see Counselor Telnori 3 times a week.
Who we've never met before and will never see at any point after this or during this. So,
So, we don't really need to cast this guy, do we? But apparently he's just like a full-time counselor who lives on the station that we've never heard of before, so.
Yep. Gotta have somebody to counsel people.
Yeah. Keiko catches Miles dividing up his food and putting some in a napkin for later. He explains that the feedings of the prison were irregular, and you had to save food to keep from starving.
So, I wonder if he didn't save food, would he have died from starvation in the mind prison? I don't...
Yeah, see, I don't know. Yeah, I mean, maybe just the simulation will never let him go that long or something. I don't know.
So it's the more food they save, the worse it is because it will maximize the suffering or whatever. So it'll draw it out as long as you still have food.
I could believe that.
It's messed up.
We cut back to the prison where E-Char hides some food under a rock for later. O'Brien, now with a beard, asks E-Char how he survived for 6 years without going crazy. E-Char says that he drew geometrical patterns called isikas on the ground. O'Brien asks how to do it, and E-Char begins to teach him. Then E-Char says he looks like a whatever hawk picking at a carcass, and the two share a laugh.
So
O'Brien,
under rock, that doesn't the beam can't get it, so that's good.
Right. So if you want to put something, hide something away, just put it under a rock.
They never searched these cells or anything like that. If you could somehow construct a shiv and hide it under a rock, it would be all good.
Right. I mean, the prison isn't real. Remember,
the
whole thing is just designed to be an experience.
But, true.
The chief apparently just never wonders about any of this. I don't know. O'Brien asks him how he can still joke and laugh, and Ichar says, "You have to learn to laugh to keep from going insane." Back in the chief's quarters, Keiko wakes up and finds Miles sleeping on the floor and puts a blanket over him. Later at Quark's, the chief plays darts with Worf for some reason. But both have lost track of the score.
They're really bad at this game.
Yeah. So, who knows? Whatever.
They need one of those electronic dartboards that keeps the score for you.
Yeah, I know. I mean, what's all that beeping that the dartboard does?
Yeah. Yeah.
Apparently it's just a noise that it makes when a dart hits it. Then O'Brien sees Ichar walking by outside, but of course he's gone by the time O'Brien goes out to investigate. Then we see that Jake Sisko is still in the show, which Cirroc Lofton is.
In a while.
He's just having an easy season.
Yeah, like, no joke.
You want to come over for a scene in the show that you're like a accredited cast member of? Sure.
Yeah. It's seriously like he stands there and Chief O'Brien names things and like it's really easy street here.
Yeah. So yeah, the chief I guess is going back to work, so he needs to get quizzed on what all these doodads do.
Yeah, it's kind of important as a major engineer on the station that he be able to accurately do engineering work.
Yep. But back on the job, O'Brien seems to be getting back into the groove nicely. Then Bashir pays him a visit and asks why he hasn't been to Counselor Tel Nori in 10 days. But O'Brien says he's sick of talking about his experience and the no bathrooms and stuff, and just wants to be left alone. And Bashir says, wasn't he alone for 20 years? And O'Brien lashes out and says, the one thing he didn't miss was the doctor's smug, superior attitude.
I don't blame him.
And he should just stay away from him if he knows what's best. Back in the prison cell, Ichar asks about Keiko while Miles paces, but Miles gets agitated and kicks Ichar's Asika and starts shouting and pounding on the door, demanding to be let out, until Ichar grabs and restrains him. Although, I mean, we never ever see guards in this prison, so I don't know what's going to happen.
Well, yeah, I mean, over the speakers, they're like, hey, you guys stop that, or there's going to be consequences, but yeah, who knows what that might be.
Then we go back to the chief at Quark's. The chief orders a synth ale, but Quark is extremely busy. So O'Brien grabs him and menacingly demands his synth ale, which he takes to a corner table where he sits alone until Ichar shows up. Then Miles says, "You're just in my head." And Ichar says, "That's all I ever was, but you need me." Quark and Odo look on with concern.
Yeah, probably they should be concerned. So, there's an interesting note about Ichar in this episode.
Okay.
It says, while composing the teleplay, Robert Hewitt Wolf and Ronald D. Moore, who I guess helped out, disagreed as to how best to use the character of Ichar. Wolf felt that Ichar should only be seen in flashbacks to the past, while Moore felt that he should only be seen in hallucinations in the present. In the end, they compromised, and he's in both.
How is that going to work? I mean, was he not going to be a cellmate, or were we just never going to see flashbacks or something?
So I assume in the version where he doesn't appear in the flashbacks, I assume that we're supposed to believe for longer that he actually was alone. And so we only see him like from a perspective in his cell where he looks alone. And then it's like, well, why is this guy like razzing him in these weird hallucinations? Like, it doesn't make any sense. And then at the end, it's like, oh my God, that's what it was.
Yeah, okay, maybe. Later, as the chief gets ready for work, Vision Ichar asks what he's doing. O'Brien says to leave him alone. He's back at home, back at work, and everything's fine. Ichar says, then why am I here? Then O'Brien gets summoned to Sisko's office. Sisko, as you might expect, is also concerned. He orders O'Brien to go see the counselor right now, but O'Brien says he's got too much work to do. But Sisko says, no, you've got to go see the counselor.
Good news, everybody. You have no work to do.
Yeah. It's like, well, see, as your boss, I can change that. O'Brien storms out, blowing past Dax, ripping off his badge and throwing it to the ground. He goes to confront Bashir for ratting him out. Bashir pleads to let him help him, and then Vision Ichar shows up and says to listen to him. O'Brien says that the old O'Brien is dead, and he doesn't want any help. Ichar begs Miles to go back and get the help he needs. He says sooner or later he'll have to tell someone about him. And then O'Brien says, "You're dead, so just go away." Ichar says, "If I'm here, it's because you want me here." So Miles goes home where Keiko tries to comfort him. Molly wants to show him a picture that she drew, but he gets irritated and snaps at her. Then he runs out and goes to a cargo bay where he starts wrecking shit up with a giant wrench.
Yep, one of those big wrenches. Gotta love it when they show up.
Until he notices a weapons locker on the wall. He opens it and takes out a phaser, puts it to the highest setting, and points it at his head. Break for commercial!
This is Weapons Locker 47. Are you familiar with the 47 and its recurrence on the show or in the property?
Yeah, I just know there's just a lot of 47.
Yeah,
going around.
So it points out that it goes back to Joe Minoski, writer on Next Generation and Voyager, who attended Pomona College in California. There's a club at Pomona called the 47 Club, which claims that there exists a mathematical proof that all numbers are equal to 47, and that the number 47 occurs with greater frequency in nature than other numbers. 74 makes frequent reappearances as well, as does 23, which is half of 47 rounded down.
Sure.
So Joe Minoski starts sticking it in stuff, and then it became like an in-joke, and they stick 47 all over the place.
Ah. Nice.
According to Ronald D. Moore, the number of 47 references in later seasons of DS9 declined because the production staff got tired of the joke. And
Nice.
Also, once when asked about the significance of the number, Rick Berman said, 47 is 42 corrected for inflation, referring to Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
Sure. Nice. Yeah, in college and stuff, it's like there's all kinds of proofs that you can prove any number is equal to any other number if you use like just one of many like deceptive proof tricks.
Huh.
So, yeah.
Who knew math was so shady?
Right. We kind of, like, professors always like to, show that stuff in class and stuff to be like, hey, look, watch out for stuff like this.
Mm-hmm.
This is the stuff like the sum of all numbers added together is equal to -12. Or no, -1 over 12.
Huh.
There's a proof of that, like, which is a very controversial proof on the internet. Anyway. Okay. So we come back from our commercial break where O'Brien is pointing a gun to his head.
Yep.
As we often see in Star Trek. O'Brien is stopped by Bashir, who tries to talk him down.
Is there any indication of how Bashir finds O'Brien in a random cargo bay?
I mean, didn't he just ask the computer? I mean,
no, because he took off his badge earlier.
Yeah. I don't know. It's like, where would I go if I was Chief O'Brien? Or maybe it's
Weapons Locker 47.
An unknown individual is wrecking shit up in Cargo Bay 47 with a giant wrench.
Yeah, I feel like an alert should probably go off if Chief O'Brien, who's now been relieved of duty, uses his access code to open a weapons locker.
Oh, yeah. I mean, maybe it shouldn't give him access.
Yes, absolutely. It shouldn't have. That should be the first thing. Yes, but
anyway, but O'Brien says he has to do this to protect Keiko and Molly and everyone else from himself. And then he breaks down and admits about Ichar. In a flashback, we see O'Brien and Ichar, now both much older. Neither has eaten in a week, because I guess they stockpiled too much food. The computer program knows about Ichar's hidden food, so it's just not giving them any. At bedtime, O'Brien catches Ichar pulling a hidden supply of food out from under a rock. Then he attacks him, and we have a scuffle, but O'Brien subdues Ichar. And then he looks at the food and sees that there's 2 of everything, and comes to the conclusion that Ichar was saving food for both of them. Because there's 2 of everything. And there's 2 Brussels sprouts.
Which is why
he
got up in the middle of the night and while O'Brien was sleeping to get it out.
Yeah, how outrageous that he came to that conclusion somehow.
Also, he subdues him with like a bone-snapping sound.
Right.
Which apparently in the UK version, the bone breaking is removed. Or the sound of it, at least.
It's like, that's too far for the UK.
Yeah, right.
Too hot for the UK.
It's just like they can't have Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles in there. They have to have Teenage Mutant Hero Turtles. So,
yeah. But yeah, it's too late. Echar is dead. Then O'Brien gives a speech to Bashir about how he always thought of himself as an enlightened and evolved man of the Federation, but after only 20 years of horrible, degrading, dehumanizing conditions, he found out he was no better than an animal. Bashir counters that an animal wouldn't feel bad about it, and he can't let this one incident define his whole life. And he can't pull that trigger, which makes no sense because the phaser doesn't have a trigger, but whatever.
Well, it's in the lexicon from back when there were triggers.
Okay. But you can't let the Agrathi win. And then Miles lets Julian take the phaser. Then Echar tells Miles to be well and walks off into the afterlife or something.
Be well, John Spartan.
Later, Bashir gives O'Brien some medicine to take for the hallucinations and depression, but it won't hurt the memories. He has to go to Counselor Tel Nori for that, but O'Brien agrees to go. And then he goes home, and he gets a hug from Molly, who is excited that Daddy's home, and O'Brien says, "That's right, Daddy's home." The end.
Daddy's home.
Daddy's home. It's like that was Colomini's first take, and they're like, maybe less menacing.
Here's Daddy. Oh wait, no.
So he's reading the script. He's like, "Oh, I just love this homage to The Shining." No.
I like. Speaking of Colomini, the note is Colomini commented that Hard Time was a quote big acting challenge.
Sure.
So there you go.
Yeah. I mean, there was some.
In case you were wondering,
there was some acting talent in this episode, as Calculon might say.
Yeah, they this is obviously we're back in O'Brien must suffer territory, and
right.
They do it partly because they know that they can count on Colomini to like bring it when they put him through this stuff. It's like, who knows if Bashir would come through? Like he was in he was in that one episode where he's all in his own mind turning old and stuff, and you're like,
Yeah. Although one of my big notes is this definitely should have been a Bashir episode, not an O'Brien episode.
You think?
Yeah, I mean, I just think it would work way better with that character, but...
Well, according to Ira Stephen Bear, they do these things to O'Brien. They like to hammer him because he's such a great character and so accessible. You feel his pain.
I guess. Is that supposed to be an enjoyable thing? Like...
Yeah, I don't it's better if you can relate to the character, I guess. I don't necessarily want to in this case, but
like how Chief O'Brien doesn't have like just the worst like psychotic PTSD I just don't know. It's like he goes through all this stuff and then just in the next episode he's fine.
That is probably the biggest issue, and maybe it's not even in the next episode much, but it's just like this should not be a thing that is over at the end of this episode.
Right.
Like this would be like years, if ever, to recover from 20 years of horrible torture. So that's the biggest suspension of disbelief is that he's pretty much fine after this. It's all good.
I mean, just every once in a while, Chief O'Brien should just go off into like 1,000-yard stare.
Yeah, right.
And then the people around him just get kind of uncomfortable, and they're like, "Ooh."
Well, honestly, one of the big things for me was like, he forgot the tools and stuff, right? It's like so many events from his life would be hard to remember if you stuck 20 years in the middle of them, where he couldn't like reference those. So if they're asking him about his time on the Rutledge or whatever, it's like, man, to me, that was like 50 years ago at this point. I don't remember.
Yeah, I mean, I can't remember stuff that I was really good at just a few years ago.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
At work. It's like when I have to put my hands into something that used to be my daily job and I was really good at. And then I'm like, wait a second, how does this work again?
Yeah, so, if you don't use skills, then you lose them. And he hasn't used any skills for 20 years. So, yeah, it would be...
Yeah.
I feel like he needs to like be back on Earth for intensive psychiatric treatment, but also like a complete review or reteaching of all skills because he would have lost them.
Yeah, I mean, he needs to go to like a I don't know what you'd call it, not like a mental hospital, but some kind of resort or something where he just gets himself back together for like a few months or something.
Yeah, like, you know, jumping back, I mean, back to his family, that makes sense on some level. Like, I think it makes it very hard for them having to deal with it also. But you think, like, you know, these very important relationships in his life, like reconnecting these may be really helpful. So I get that part. But then being like, yeah, you know, we'll have you go to counseling once a week or whatever, and we'll drop you back in your job, and I'm sure it'll be fine. Like, that's,
I mean, to be fair, it was 3 times a week.
Oh,
so.
Well, yeah. So, but speaking of the psychological aspect, it notes that Robert Hewitt Wolf's wife, Celeste Wolf, who works as a psychotherapist and is a licensed family counselor, acted as kind of the unofficial consultant on this script, which I guess means they did not pay her.
Yes. It's like, what happens when a person goes to jail, like a horrible hole in the ground for 20 years and then murders somebody that they were there that whole time with? They tend to react negatively to that.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
There can be some residual messed upness that happens when something like that happens to a person.
So, okay. The most interesting part in here to me is that, let's see, the character of E-Char had not been in the original pitch. Robert Hewitt Wolf added that character. But he also introduced elements from a completely separate pitch that had also been purchased, but never made it to production. The other story concerned the discovery that Ensign Cedo Jaxa from the Next Generation episodes The First Duty and Lower Decks, which, if you recall, she dies on a mission in Lower Decks. We find out that she's still alive, and after being presumed dead, she'd been held by the Cardassians in a prison, or as a prisoner, since Lower Decks. And so they would have gotten her back, and the episode would have been about like her struggle to reintegrate and work through the PTSD and stuff from having been a prisoner for so long.
Oh, so the episode was just all about her.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so like there was this episode of her dealing with PTSD, and then there was the episode of O'Brien getting 20 years of jail poured into his head, and Robert Hewitt Wolf like combined them.
Ah, okay. So, okay, wait. The E-Char aspect came from the Lower Decks lady story.
Oh, no, the E-Char thing was kind of added. So, okay, here, let me continue, because it sort of explains. He says, there was no motivating factor for why Cedo was suffering from PTSD. I guess being in a prison camp or whatever all the time wasn't enough. So Wolf had decided that she had killed her cellmate, to whom she'd become close. And that episode was never produced, but when composing Hard Time, he was like, oh, hey, I'll take that idea and put it in here.
Okay.
So, like, that idea wasn't even originally part of that other pitch either. He added it to that other pitch, and then it didn't get used, so he kind of ported it over.
Okay. Man.
So yeah, this is how these stories evolve.
Yeah, I know.
In the Star Trek universe. Renee Echevarria commented that the episode had the right mix of science fiction and emotion, the kind of show I really like. Robert wanted to do one himself, and he did a bang up job on it. Colm Meaney is an actor you can rely on to give you everything.
I mean, the man can bring it, that's for sure.
So I like Renee Echevarria. She's like, yeah, Robert wanted to take a shot, do one on his own, so we're like, yeah, okay. Go ahead.
It's like Ringo wanted to write a song, so yeah, sure.
The final note that I have is the same premise of putting convicted criminals in a virtual reality prison simulation where they experience decades of imprisonment during a few hours was featured in the Outer Limits episode, The Sentence, directed by Joseph L. Scanlon, which aired 4 months after Hard Time.
Ooh, I guess, I mean, in TV world, that's enough time to, like, rip off a story idea.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Interesting. I mean, some might say that the entire Deep Space Nine show is a ripoff, but
yeah, that has been said. So yeah,
we
had Munoz back in this episode.
Oh, is that Munoz?
Yeah.
Just he's doing well, I guess.
Yeah, I guess he was like temporary lead on the engineering team or something. It seemed like.
Yeah, maybe he fills in whenever O'Brien's gone to weird Gamma Quadrant planets for some reason.
Yeah, somebody needs to. Like it doesn't seem like O'Brien, as we generally see him taking single-handed care of every single thing on the station. You probably shouldn't send him on random away missions unless you really send another engineer on those that isn't in charge of every single aspect of the station running.
Mm. I still don't understand what this mission possibly could have been. It was just Kira and O'Brien in a runabout.
Yeah, just maybe they were just meeting people on this planet, being like, "Hey, what's up with you guys? We're they're not even both from the Federation, actually, so it's like,
yeah,
we're Alpha Quadrant people. How you guys doing?" And they're like, "What are you talking about? We call this the Alpha Quadrant."
Yeah. Then after that, O'Brien was like, "Hey, what's that?" It's like, we call that a shovel. It's like, oh.
Guards! This guy's asking questions. Okay, are we ready for title review?
Sure.
I think that I hit everything that I had. So what do you think of Hard Time?
Well, I mean, it fits the episode. I'd give it a medium for memorableness. Yeah, I mean, I think overall it's not bad. I definitely understand what it's talking about.
Right.
What do you think?
Yeah, I think that it is actually a really good fit here. It's simple, which makes it almost too generic. Like you talked about, you really giving a medium on memorableness because it is a little bit. But the episode itself is so memorable that the connection is easy for my brain to make. I'm like, oh, Hard Time. I know what episode you're talking about. And it's got a kind of poetic appropriateness here because you can read it on a couple different levels.
Yeah. Because
I like it. I think that this is a good episode title.
Yeah. All right. How about episode? How do you feel about the episode Hard Time?
So this is a very memorable episode, as I already said. It's like it's hard to forget this episode. It's like it's like the example of these O'Brien Must Suffer episodes. Like if you're gonna pick out one where it's like this was the worst thing they ever did to O'Brien, this is probably the one.
Yeah.
And so, and I think it's also a really good examination in a way that we don't get to see a lot of like a PTSD sort of situation, especially on Star Trek. Like they kind of gloss over these things. Bashir even brings up, it's like, oh yeah, he's been through all of these really horrible things already and he was fine. Just as if to hang a lantern on the fact that, no, he should probably already have PTSD at this point.
Right.
And so I feel like they handle that really well, except for the fact, as we established, that it's like at the end of the episode, they're like, okay, well, we don't want this to continue to be an issue, so we're just going to say it's good, more or less. Like we're not going to say, oh, you're fine now, we cured you, because that would be insensitive, but we'll be like, you'll get better, and then we just won't address it again.
Right.
So that, from a psychological standpoint, is kind of messed up. But I think that he does a great job on this script. It is it really connects emotionally.
Yeah.
But we've hit that point again, and I forget what even the last episode was where I said it, but it's like, you've gone too far, Deep Space Nine. Like, I am not having fun anymore at this point. It's like, oh man, O'Brien's gonna blow his brains out. Like, you lost me. I don't want to do this anymore. I don't like it. I'm not enjoying where we have gone. And just in general, and I think I mentioned it in Tribunal, I'm not a big fan of the O'Brien Must Suffer episodes. Like, they do them because they get this good acting performance out of him, and they say, the audience can really connect with it. And I think that's true. I do feel this connection with it. I don't like it. So I don't like this episode, and I don't like having to watch it. I think it's an amazingly done piece of work technically from a writing perspective and an acting perspective, but I don't like it. So I'm going to put it, this is going to be way down there for me. I'm going to put this at like a Lieutenant Junior grade, I think, just from the perspective of I don't want to have to watch it again anytime soon.
Yeah. I mean, it's a freaking bleak episode.
Yep.
And it's like, when you go to watch an episode of Star Trek, there's kind of this expectation of what tone you're going to get. And I feel like this way violates that.
You're taking advantage of me and the trust I've put in you, Deep Space Nine.
Right. It's like, so, okay, and then O'Brien puts a gun to his head. It's like, okay, hold on a second. I was like, are the writers okay? Why do we have so many, like, suicide-centered episodes this season?
That's an interesting point, yep.
But yeah, I agree. Like you said, it was really well done. Writing, directing, acting were all on point, I think. But it's just like, seeing stuff happen like this to the Chief, it makes me sick. So, like I was saying, I think it would be better if it was Bashir, like, kind of a younger guy who's lived a relatively comfortable life up to this point, and he's put through this horrible thing, and then it's like, oh my gosh, what kind of person am I and all that stuff. And then O'Brien could be the guy to lean on and help him through that stuff. So
that's a good point. Like, O'Brien could bring to the table, like, he has that war experience, which Bashir wouldn't have, where he's like, look, I've killed people and I don't feel good about that. But yeah, you're right that he could be a good person to be on the other side of that conversation. I hadn't considered that when you said Bashir should be the one going through it.
And we're always talking about, like, all these turning points for Bashir, so it's like, that would be a good way to kind of, put some
gravitas.
Yeah, give that character a little character, as opposed to just this kind of, like, playboy guy who's just always, like, having a good time. And yeah.
Bashir gets to draw a character from being a super spy, and O'Brien has to...
Right.
Yep.
So it's almost like I want to give props to, like, Colomini for his performance, and like how well it was written and how well it was directed and all that stuff. But so I'll go ahead and give it a full lieutenant.
Okay.
But yeah, like, it's just not something that you want to get punched in the face with when you, like, sit down to watch your weekly Deep Space Nine. You're like, oh, what fun adventures are we going to go on this time? It's like, oh my gosh. It's like, that's horrible. You had to poop on the ground? So
I like the comment where you're like, are you okay over there, writers?
Yeah, I know. I was like, what the heck?
So far, or rather, in the first 3 new episodes of we're in season 4 of Lower Decks now. In the first 3 episodes, there are 2 episodes where a character very sadly is like, I miss my wife. And so somebody on after the 3rd episode aired and we saw that again, somebody on Reddit was like, are you okay, writers?
Right.
Like, this is something's going on. You need help.
Yeah. I mean, every once in a while, like, you hear about TV writers or something, and they're, like, going through a divorce or something, and they, like, put that all down on their in their writing or whatever. But yeah, I don't know. Apparently, just Robert Hewitt Wolf just really loved this idea of torturing Chief O'Brien horribly. So
yeah, he's been pushing it for years. Like, we got to do this. We got to get him.
He just had this, like, really sadistic itch he had to scratch, I guess. I don't know.
Honestly, I would have kind of liked to see Cito Jaxa back for, like, that version of the story. But
well, when you said that, I was trying to remember. I thought we saw her die. Was she in a thing that blew up or something?
Oh, let me go back. It's been a while since I saw the Lower Decks episode. Let me go to her Memory Alpha article and see what happens here. Okay, so she leaves on a mission, and they wait 32 hours for her to return, but they only find debris that seems to be from a destroyed escape pod.
Okay. So she totally could have been captured, I guess.
Yeah.
And it is like those Cardassians to just grab people up and then hold on to them. So
and pretend that they don't have them, constantly.
Right. We have seen this before, so
which it's weird, like, it would be a little bit odd for it to be like she has PTSD from this experience when we've met other people who have been in these prison camps longer.
Right.
That we didn't deal with that story. Like Lee Nollis, nobody gave him any time to like reaccommodate to life not in a prison camp. They're just like, oh no, you're a hero. Get ready to be a hero.
I mean, that's how stuff works in real life. It's like, it affects some people and it doesn't affect other people. And it's just
that's true. Yeah.
There's just no rhyme or reason to it. So, was that going to be a next gen episode or?
No, it sounded to me like it was. Hold on, let me re-review what they said. It doesn't say. I just assumed from the way that they said that they'd purchased it and never used it or whatever that it was a DS9 one, but there's nothing says that had to be the case. What season was Lower Decks?
I guess you could do it on D-Space 9. It's just a little weird, I feel like, to suddenly move that character's story into another show, but
Lower Decks was season 7, episode 15, so kind of towards the end. I doubt that they could have even tried to be like, oh yeah, in like the couple months since then, she's got the PTSD and we need to help her or whatever. I mean, it's possible, obviously, for horrible things to happen to you very quickly, but I don't think that would work in the show.
Yeah, so I guess did O'Brien know her? They could always just say that O'Brien knew her. So
yeah, I assume that he wouldn't have. Well, not from that episode since he would have already been gone.
Oh yeah, that's right. And then
I don't know how long. I don't know if we know how long she'd been on the ship at that point because she was kind of freshish out of the academy.
So we'll never know what this episode was going to be. So
yep. Okay, apparently her covert assignment was 7 months after her assignment to the Enterprise D at the request of Picard. So, yeah, she had not been on the ship too long.
Okay.
Worf would know her.
Oh, was she under Worf?
Hold on. I believe there's even a picture of like her and Worf sparring in here, so I think they knew each other. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he's teaching her some martial arts in the Lower Decks episode. So yeah, he would have had at least some sort of relationship there.
Okay. So yeah, Worf could then maybe be kind of like her connection to the Deep Space Nine world then.
Yeah.
We're not going to write this whole episode. We're just like trying to puzzle it out. Like
once again, we're going to go back in time and be like, hey, let's do that Ceto Jaxa episode.
I mean, we still have all kinds of great episodes we need to write. Like we need to write the Q Alice in Wonderland story.
Yeah.
What else? We need to write the Shakespeare was an alien who lived on every single planet story. Some Tosk follow-up, maybe.
I just, the more I think about it, the better it is. It's like Shakespeare's this guy who goes to all like various planets and then he just like lives off of the fame of becoming this renowned writer. Right. And then when he like starts to get too old on that planet, he moves to a new one and becomes famous again with the same exact plays. It's great. Like there's that would be an amazing character.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like, and it's like they go meet him in the Gamma Quadrant or something. He's like, oh, yeah.
Yeah, he's like made his way all the way out there. You got to go far to get somebody who hasn't heard Shakespeare at this point.
He just writes the same like plays over and over and over again.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I mean, you could still do that today, Star Trek.
Absolutely.
Like what's out there right now? We got Strange New Worlds. You could do it. Lower Decks. You could do it.
Yeah. I mean, I think that would definitely. You could do a goofy version of that on Lower Decks, I guess, or Strange New Worlds. Yeah,
honestly, it feels kind of like an original series story to me.
True.
So I think that Strange New Worlds could totally pull it off.
Yeah, man, can we like write this? How do you write scripts and send them into Hollywood? Like, I guess we shouldn't do that because there's a strike going on now.
That would make us scabs. Let's not do that.
That would be a bad look. So
I don't know. There was one time where I was working on a spec script for a show, intending to figure out a way to send it in, and then what was that? I don't even remember what the circumstance was, but like Caleb was in town, and he was like telling me about some people that he knew, and one of them was a writer on this show. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm doing like a spec script for that show. And he's like, oh, if you get that to me, I can totally get it to her. And then the show got canceled like immediately after that. So that didn't work out. But I think the secret is you have to know somebody, or you have to write a book that somebody is interested in, and then they'll be like, hey, and they'll invite you out to tour the set, and then you can pitch them your script.
Oh, okay. So anyway, do we have anything more to talk about for this episode?
No, I don't think I do.
Okay, let's, what do we have to look forward to next time?
So next time, here's the thing. You hear all the time about, like, deadbeat dads. This is the deadbeat mom story.
Ooh.
Like that's what it is. And then, the deadbeat dads haven't paid child support in a decade, and then they try to, like, have a relationship with their kid after they're 18 or something. Like that's what's going to happen.
Right. An episode of The Simpsons comes to mind, but
yeah, okay. That had not occurred to me, but you're not wrong.
Is Walt Whitman featured in this episode at all?
Walt freaking Whitman.
Yeah, but anyway, look forward to that. If you've made it this far, thanks for listening. Don't forget to check the description. Interesting stuff goes in there sometimes. I'm Fletcher, about to say goodbye as Data.
See ya.
Until we meet again, keep the blood wine warm and the prune juice chilled.